Hello, welcome to 5 a.m. session 20, focus on the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean is a region rich in biodiversity and cultural diversity, yet challenged by environmental stresses and growing human pressures. This session explores several interconnected themes along the Indian coastline and adjacent island states. The waste issue addressed both through scientific understanding of pollution pathways and community-driven solutions for plastic waste recovery. The work of an NGO which supports small-scale fisheries in designing sustainable livelihood models that balance conservation, food security, and economic benefits.
And so for this session, we have the pleasure to be joined by three guests. So we have Sudha Kolikli and Shruti Kolili. So they are research fellow at Positive Change for Marine Life in India. And we have also the chance to have Jessica Brand, which is a MARES alumni, former Blue Manager student, who's done also a professional project at Positive Change for Marine Life in India. Unfortunately, we're not able to have Aurore Mollet, who was more based in our time zone. And yeah, she has some field work to do. So the time at 5 a.m. was not working. So she's really apologizing. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we can go more into depth with your insights on the Indian. So thank you for joining us.
Definitely. Okay, so how about we start with Sudha, if we can. Can you briefly introduce yourself? Tell us about your background and your experience.
Thank you. Yeah, it's wonderful to be here. And I'm Sudha Kotlil. I'm joining from India, and I work as a consultant with PCFML. So it stands for Positive Change for Marine Life, and it's the organization is based in Trivandrum in Kerala. So it's south of India on the west coast, so adjacent to the Arabian Sea. And I also work with a sustainable seafood initiative called as In Season Fish, and that work is largely based in a city called Chennai, and it's on the east coast of India, and it's bordering adjacent to the Bay of Bengal. So my work focuses on fisheries management. So in particular, looking at elasmobranch conservation, so sharks, rays, and skates along the Indian coast, and also general fisheries management and sustainable seafood consumption. So that's where my work largely lies in the Indian context. But yeah.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah,
interesting.
Super cool. Okay, and let's go to Shruti.
Yeah, so I'll just jump off what Sudha said. It's good to be on the call, and yeah, very similar background. So I also work as a research consultant for Positive Change for Marine Life, and their focus is wide on plastic pollution, fisheries management, and also on waste disposal. And then that's on the west coast, and then on the east, as Sudha mentioned, I work for In Season Fish. So we work with a lot of stakeholders, from chefs to retailers to students to researchers on sustainable seafood consumption. So we try to focus on species conservation, local community livelihoods, and also tapping into sustainable consumption on the restaurant side of things. So yeah, trying to bring in as many stakeholders as possible.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And Jessica.
Yes, hello. Also, thank you for organizing this and for having me here. So I was doing project work with Positive Change for Marine Life for a couple of months last year. And their main focus, as the others two already said, they have three projects. One is called Waste for Wells, where they try to, as the name said, using the waste and turning it into something for an income for the local community, like upcycling plastic or turning food waste into new soil, like composting it. And another project is Fisheries for Change, where they try to work with the local fishermen and trying to help them understand the issues of the fishing and to transfer them into more sustainable practices. But also the idea was to create a MPA in that area, so a marine protective area. And another project is rewilding floodplains, where they focus on mangrove restorations in a nearby river estuary. My project there was actually a little bit jumping everywhere, but mostly also creating a new project that was called Clean Kovalam, where we try to understand why they have so much issues with the plastic waste at the beach and the pollution itself like these pictures right now, you see them in many corners in Kovalam, which is really a pity. It's a very beautiful area by itself, like beautiful landscape sceneries and high biodiversity. But you see these trash piles everywhere, and one part of it was to make some survey to understand this issue, like with the community. So where we create a couple of questions, some locals from the NGO were translating it into their local language, and local people also went to do the survey. Also because when you work with a community, if you're a foreigner, you might not get the right answer. You get the answer that they think you want to hear. So that is also still the issue, actually, when the locals go too, because they might be yeah, it's too early. Sorry, I'm losing some words.
we know. Don't
Yeah.
worry. We know.
They might be afraid that they might get fined or anything, even though when you say it's just for us for the knowledge, we want to help fix the issue of the waste, making it also more healthy. But yeah, still sometimes they do not answer correctly, so they burn a lot of plastic too. They dump a lot of plastic or general waste. The main issue is also because they don't have proper waste management. Like, it's a huge issue. Only plastics are picked up every now and then, like once a month or so, if even. Sometimes it's also skipped. And then the issue is also the people that pick it up. It's often very old ladies, where I'm like, how can you do that to them? Like, how can you let them do all this hard work? Because the area at the coast is actually also quite hilly. So they have to walk quite far with the plastic bags to the trucks to load it there. So often even they sometimes burn it. And sometimes, if you look into their perspective, you can somehow understand it. They don't have other issues and they, physically exhausted. So you take the easy way out, also because they don't understand the consequences. So actually the main issue is not having proper waste management. And PCFML tried in one fishery community to set up some plastic pickup and food waste collection, and that starts working quite well. But then there's also the issue, you have to align that with the government. And also right now, the government is not very happy about foreign NGOs doing work in India. So yeah, they don't make it easy, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a very good overview.
Yeah. But I think what is important, perhaps, and we didn't mention, because you say foreign NGO. Can you perhaps just elaborate on that for like?
Oh yeah. So the NGO is actually from Australia, but based in Kovalam. They also have one in Solomon Islands and in Australia itself. So 3 locations. And yeah, so it's foreign in that sense. And for the plastic, while we were there, we tried to start using the collected plastic bags from that community to make it into plarn. So it's yarn, but made with plastic bags. So we try to do the crocheting as well a little bit to make bags out of it or something else. They also do that at the Solomon Islands, and it works quite well. So that is one way they try to upcycle it. And other ways is also just to collect it and to get it sent to the facilities that treat it in some way. I wouldn't necessarily say it's still the same way as the majority how we do it in the Western world, but it's still better than just having it flying around everywhere. Because also what I often saw when I walked along the beach, so Indians like to eat curry. And they also like to eat it at the beach. So they take their little plastic bags. Like, they don't have too much like the plastic boxes, reusable ones that we use. Sometimes they have some steel boxes or something like that. But often they also use plastic bags, especially when they get something from restaurants and they take it to the beach. And they leave it behind. But it has a curry all over it and the birds like it. So I have seen it a few times as well that the birds at the coast, they start eating the plastic bag because they think it's food, because the food is still attached to it. which is a little bit heartbreaking to see that, and you cannot always pick up all the bags, unfortunately. And also the community, because of all the waste management issue, they dump a lot of waste into the water channels too that go into the river. So actually in the water you see often many milk packages. So here we sometimes have these Tetra packs, but they mostly use like plastic bags where the milk is in, like plastic pouches. So you see floating them around a lot. And also plastic bags too. And last year,
it sounds kind of like there's a big problem with plastic pollution.
Yes, there's a big problem with plastic solutions.
I want to come back to something interesting. Shruti mentioned about India on the west coast. You kind of focus on plastic pollution, but on the east coast you focus on fisheries. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I think it's more to do with the organization we sort of associated with, because PCFML looks at more of the waste angle to fishing, and then linking all of the other projects such as the Fishing for Change and then the Waste to Wealth, all of that around plastic pollution. And on the on the east coast, it's more to do with species conservation. That's where sharks and rays come in, and then you have the fisheries management, and then the sustainable seafood consumption. So, but then we do see interlinkages like on both sides. I think, as Jessica mentioned, plastic pollution is a big major problem along the coasts in India, especially because it's a very tourist friendly place. I mean, you have a lot of tourists coming in on the weekends, and then you have a lot of food stalls and things like that are not very well controlled or managed, and there's not really any monitoring going on. I think that's one of the biggest problems or challenges here in India, because the monitoring is a very challenging effort. Even if you look at the fisheries side of it, or even the waste disposal part of it, monitoring, unless you have management measures in place and then the monitoring in place, I think it's very difficult to assess where the waste is being disposed and how you can effectively dispose them. And one of the other challenges also to this waste problem is the fishing nets, the fishing gears in the local communities. I think that's one of the major waste that's generated, especially in the fishing industry, because you have a lot of those gears that are either torn or or cut when they go fishing, that they either disposed in the sea or on the shore. So I think there is a picture on the slide. I mean, you can see on the left hand side that there is like a coast, a beach, sandy beach, and then that's where usually that's the local fishing village.
Is it this one? Sorry.
This one. So you can see on the left hand side there's a lot of boats and a lot of fishing gear. So those are actually not usable. So they are either discarded or the boats are not in working condition. So you can see that so you can see that there is already like a major management or monitoring or a regulation in place to kind of control all of this. And and that and there's no way to really reuse these fishing gears, because the fishermen don't have a solution to it, and the government also do not have, although there are processes in place where you can reuse or recycle some of this, which Positive Change for Marine Life is also looking into, to potentially utilize these fishing gear. It's not really, there's no awareness generated among the fishing community for them to be aware of it. So I think that's a really huge problem that we are trying to tackle here, about awareness creation and more sensitization around waste and effective fishing.
It's really interesting to see the kind of comparison between the plastic pollution as a waste and also the fishing gears waste. I thought those were boats that people were using as well, so that's super interesting, of course. Sudha, Shruti briefly talked about kind of some of the challenges facing the fishing industry. What other challenges are they facing in terms of species selection, for example, in India?
Yeah, no, I was going to touch upon that as well, and it's a really interesting topic if you look at it in the context of India, just because I think the photo that you just showed now, where Shruti mentioned on the left side it's a beach, and on the right side is actually a fish market. So this is a small-scale fishing site in India. I mean, in Chennai on the east coast, and there the fishermen are all they have been traditionally doing fishing for generations. So their uncles have been doing it, their grandparents have been doing it, and it's been passed down from generations. And they were one of the first inhabitants of this cosmopolitan city that we call Chennai. It's quite a cosmopolitan metro city in India. And so when you look at it, they are small-scale fisheries, and they use traditional fishing practices. So a lot of their gills, the nets that they use are species specific. So for example, you have mackerel, you have sardines, which are quite common here. And on particular months, during particular months of a year, say for example June to July, they would focus on catching sardines or mackerel or crab or or kingfish. So they know in which season a particular fish is available based on the breeding cycle. So for example, if kingfish is breeding during Jan to February, they avoid catching kingfish during those months to allow for the population to bounce back after the fishing that has been happening over past the rest of the year. So they have this traditional knowledge and focus on fishing at the right time and at the right locations. But when you compare that to commercial fisheries, like Chennai has both. So you have a very big commercial fishery called the in Chennai Fisheries Harbour, which is called Casimeda here locally, and there it's trawlers, it's bottom bottom trawling. So you can imagine as destructive as possible, and they go fishing for 10 to over a month. They go cover huge distances, and the quantity and the impact of that fishing is much bigger than what these small scale fishermen who just go for a day. So they go in the morning, they fish for 5 hours, and they come back, and that's what they sell. But the commercial trawlers, they go for 10 days, store the fish on ice, and then get back. So when you compare these two fishing techniques and effort, it's quite different. And that's also, and what is different is also on the east coast, the fishing grounds of these small scale fishermen and the commercial fisheries don't overlap, because the government has enforced some sort of a regulation to make sure that that small scale fisheries are protected from the commercial fisheries. But if you look at the west coast where PCFML is working, when we went and talked to these small scale fishermen, the traditional fishermen, like the traditional fishing practicing villages, there one of the major issues that popped up was how these commercial fisheries are operating in the small scale fisheries fishing areas. So the small scale fishermen were facing a very big challenge and issue as to getting decent size catch, and then selling that catch, getting a livelihood out of the catch. So whenever we, all three of us went and spoke to them, especially I think we did this early last year to 23 in 23. So a lot of them said that the major issue is how the commercial fisheries are coming in and operating in that area, and how that is impacting their livelihood. And they were asking us to find a solution to this problem. And the only solution for this is for government officials, the commercial fisheries, and the small scale fishermen to come to the same table, have discussions, and find solution. But getting them on the same table is a big issue because they don't see eye to eye, and they have each of them have their own agendas. So getting them on getting all of them together in the same place is a huge challenge that we're trying to sort of address as well. So apart from the plastic pollution, the overfishing, the interaction of different players in this fishing industry is posing to be a big issue. And of course climate change, you don't have to talk about climate change. With increase of storms, sea temperatures rising, you're seeing a shift in how fishes are being caught, their breeding cycles are changing. So all of that is also playing majorly into the fishing landscape in India.
Yeah, I think thank you very much. That was super interesting. I think the relationship between commercial and the small scale is not just an Indian thing, an Indian issue at all. I think that's all over the world, but maybe in India it's on a much larger scale, obviously a much bigger population than a lot of countries in Europe.
Yeah, so, but I think I just want to continue on that a little bit, just to understand then how do you manage to try to help help on this issue? Because you told us a lot of things, which is really super interesting. But I'm just like wondering, so
where do you start?
Yeah, just like on the daily basis, it's just like where are you starting? What are you doing? Trying then to empower these small scale fisheries.
Yeah, I could start off that, and then Shruti and Jessica could also add. So I think the biggest thing is ensuring that the small scale fishermen are able to continue the way they're doing. So one of the big things that we do on the East Coast is also how we are trying to map these traditional fishing practices and sort of connecting them to consumers directly. So we are trying to create awareness with consumers, telling them how sustainable. You don't have to spend, when you think about sustainable seafood, we think that it's a luxury. We think we have to spend a lot of money to get seafood that's sustainable. But in the Indian context, that's not really true, because the small scale side, that the picture that you have of the beach on one side and the market on the other, it's a sustainable fishery, and it's much cheaper than the commercial harbor. So you can get good quality fresh fish for much less cost than you would if you go to the commercial fishery. So getting people aware that you have these accessible options in India where you can go to small scale fishermen and buy fish directly from the small scale fishery. This is a commercial fishery, so this is a commercial harbor, and you can see how different it looks to a small scale fishery. So while so while people do come here and buy, we're also encouraging people to go directly to these small scale fishermen and buy it from them. So in a way, you're empowering them, you're supporting their uh, form of fishing, and you're not relying on anybody else. So it's the direct link between consumers and the fishing communities. That's one way of doing it. And the second is also how even if you, for example, I'm just giving you an example of the East Coast. So right now there's a ban going on for the commercial fishery for 2 months. So 15th of April to June 15th, this commercial fishery, the photo that you see here, is not operating because it's monsoon season, and a lot of, not monsoon, but it's a lot of fish breed during this time. So to keep it as a general ban, these 2 months they don't operate. But this ban does not apply to the small scale fishery because they are dependent on this for significantly for their livelihood, and also they're quite sustainable. So there's a difference between the ban being applicable to commercial fisheries but not to small scale. So this again is in a way protecting the small scale fisheries, to allow them to operate at this time. So this is another solution. And I think even for PCFML, when you look at the work we are doing, we are trying to reach out to government officials, we are trying to reach out to the commercial fisheries, and we are also speaking with small scale fishermen to understand exactly where the issues lie and how it could be mitigated. So one example is how in the West Coast, during night they use LED lights, and these small boats, when they go out at night, they use LED lights which target really small fish. So juvenile fish, and and this LED light attracts a lot of them. So when you catch these juvenile fish, you're depleting the ocean of its resources quite significantly. So we're trying to work with these fishermen to stop using LED lights. So that involves also talking to the commercial fisheries to ask them to stop operating in the small scale fisheries so that they can then go there and fish properly. So these conversations are happening on the side by side, and it's easier because the fishing communities are seeing how it's impacting their livelihoods. So when we go with them with a solution, they're much more receptive to understand it because that is what they're facing on a day-to-day basis. I think I'll give it to Shruti and Jessica to talk.
Yeah, please feel free to add in, Shruti.
Yeah, so maybe, I don't want to repeat what Sudha said, but just to add, probably, the other thing is that I think these fishing communities across all of the sites kind of are starting to realize the damage that they've done, or that the community has done, and they're sort of facing the consequences now. For example, I think there was a depletion of stock 2 or 3 years ago on both coasts of India, and talking to the local fishing communities and the traders and the exporters who play a big role in this process, they themselves came up with an idea that they would release a juvenile. So once they see that juvenile fish species are caught in the net, they made it a informal rule, if I may say so, that they would release the juveniles back into the sea. And now 2 years down the line, they're reaping the benefits of it. So we talked to them, and it had nothing to do with me, Sudha, Jessica, or any other conservationist going and telling them that this is what they're supposed to do. It's sort of, I think, they're coming to realize that there are some implications if you're not going to sustainably source the seafood, and they are the first ones to they're the front line of to reap that consequence. So I think they have started to come up with their own solutions and when their own practices, and it's up to us to then encourage them and then probably give them some sort of encouragement that this is the right way, that this is the right direction, and these are the results that you are likely to see if you continue to go by these rules or these policies or these measures. So that I think it's also more about recognizing what traditional communities already have done and then trying to bring that back, so that they are also encouraged to sort of employ these practices and know that they're going the right direction and have some sort of evidence for it as they do it. Yeah,
and I guess for the small scale fishery, it gives them some time of autonomy as well, like some independence where they feel free that they're not actually harming the environment as nowhere near as much as commercial fisheries. This is super interesting, and it's good that you can be there to encourage them to make those changes as well.
Not an easy task, I guess.
Not an easy task. Oh, no. So we'll come back to plastic pollution because we're gonna time goes really fast. Shruti just mentioned about communities kind of taking back this kind of control of themselves. Are there any initiatives with communities addressing the plastic pollution side, through local circular solutions? Maybe Jessica can start on this. Is there any initiatives local communities?
Yes, so we do have some, we call them like trial areas, where we started to do some workshops with the community to explain a bit more what the issues are if they leave their waste out, like generally, and also plastic itself. And we performed some cleanups with them. And often actually in Kerala is one state that's actually quite well educated, of all India speaking. So also Kerala itself, if you visit India, it's much cleaner than other states, even though for us Western it still looks often still very dirty, but it's in comparison much cleaner. So in theory, they know the issues, often at least, but the issue really is they don't have the possibilities to do something. So with PCFML, we do try to educate them a bit more. We try to get the hotels and the restaurants on board to don't use like plastic spoons or something, for instance, or like the little stalls at the beach that sell ice cream and those things, to not do that and to not throw it into the ocean, but to give it to the people that come and collect it. But then again, it's also very hot, and often, since they don't come as regular, it's the issue also of storing it. So where do they store the plastic? And often when they have to give the plastic away, they also have to wash it, if I understood it correctly back then. So there are many things that you should have to do to be able to give it away properly, but then they make it too difficult for them to actually follow it. Like they don't have the storage space, and it's very hot if you also don't clean it and keep it. You get all the animals coming and all the bugs to it. So there are multiple issues aligned together that makes it very difficult. So the idea is really to get all the stakeholders on board and to find a solution with the government too. But then again, you have the issues with the government too. And it's difficult to work with them. So there are many issues, and it always comes down to really having a good waste management system that is supported by the government, because the people itself are interested in helping, and they also see, okay, if we have all these trash piles behind our houses, it attracts, rats, and then all the snakes come, and they had a lot of dangerous snakes there too. While I was there, I saw some cobras as well, so it was interesting. But yeah, so in theory, they do know the issue, but then they don't have a large-scale solution. Like the NGO can provide for very small areas, but then again, that's not enough in theory to make it on large scale. We use it as projects to show it to the government.
We've been talking about this as well in many of these sessions about a kind of step-by-step approach. So, you guys also empowering people, even if it's on a small scale, to make these changes. So I think, step by step is good. And
I think something that is really important, and also talking about the Indian region, I think it's not the only country which is touched by that. There is a lot of different countries with also the ocean currents, and just like I saw a lot of visiting, just like, yes, in this country they're all aware of that. They want to, like you said, take action already to it, but they can't, or maybe sometimes it's just like, it's a weird system where you're just like, okay, we against plastic, but sometimes we don't have access to, for example, easy water. So then you just have water bottle everywhere.
Yeah.
And so they were just like trying to, I saw that they were using to make it as like, hanging them in the trees to make it more like, at least they're using as something nice, but it's just like, it's really difficult for them because they're like, we don't want to use them, but at the same time, we don't have another choice for now. So this balance is quite tricky, and ocean currents also is really something. I think
we could talk about this for a long time, and we want to thank you guys because we're running out of time for sharing your knowledge on this. You guys are extremely knowledgeable on this, and it's been really interesting. Maybe to finish, we would like to kind of go around, and maybe you can give us a last maybe 20-second take-home message. We'll start with Shufi.
No pressure.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to have this insightful discussion with all of you, and thank you for having me. So as maybe 20-second, I think it's more about there are practices in place, there are policies in place, and I think its first step would be to really try to ensure that we live by it in a way, so that and then we can go on to the next steps. I think the first basic step would be to follow what is already existing, and look into those as avenues for us to build up, rather than having probably already 20-30 steps that we can do to prevent plastic pollution or to manage fisheries, and then sort of trying to figure out where we start, but then have those first initial steps already in place and well established before we build up on it. I think that, and then probably having a more, as you mentioned, Indian Ocean is quite vast, surrounded by a lot of countries. So I think collaborative efforts are the next big step between countries, because plastic pollution or even species conservation is not necessarily just restricted to, say, the waters along on either side of India or even the Maldives or anything like that. It's much broader on a much bigger scale than that. If you look at even illegal fishing, other more complicated stuff. So I think it's more of a collaborative effort going forward, and hopefully the UNOC happening in June would probably be a place where all of this would be discussed and some sort of solutions brought in. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jessica.
Yes, again, it was also very lovely to be here to discuss. It was very interesting. And as a take-home message, maybe especially for the Asian people that are listening to, and they have the communities that have the issues there, is to not be afraid to speak up maybe about that issue towards the government, because often I had the feeling that they have these issues and they discuss it between their little communities, but it doesn't go any further. And I think if they would together make more aware that they're unhappy with the situations, that they demand a solution, that actually maybe something could happen a bit faster. So collectively working together and speaking up about the issues, and that they want a waste management system, and just really demanding it from themselves as well. I think that would be super important.
Thank you very much. And to finish, Sudha.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me here. And it was quite interesting for me to listen and be a part of the discussion. And to keep it brief, I think I agree with what Shruti and Jessica mentioned. And my take home, and adding to those points, I think my take home message would be that these policies, and even I think they're even holding businesses accountable. I think the UNCBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity, has also brought in a lot of important points on how businesses need to be held accountable for the impacts that are having on biodiversity. And I think the fishing industry in general plays a big role. And I think any policy or any action that they take needs to have nature at its center, and should not be profit driven, but rather focus on nature and how their actions and policies impact nature directly. I think we have been in a society that focus on getting profit, making money a lot over the past couple of years. And I think now it's time for that to shift and put nature and livelihoods and people at the center of any decision or plan that's being implemented. So I think that would be my take-home message.
100%. That's a very strong message to end with. And we also have a really nice comment as well for your inspiring work. Someone's commented on. So thank you very much again for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. And we really enjoyed this conversation. It was really interesting.
Yeah, as always, it goes too fast.
Too fast.
At some time, really long journey for us. So yeah, you can stay with us, because in less than 30 minutes, we also have our next session. But again, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.